Hey, I'm Zach.
And I'm Jesse.
And you're watching In Depth.
On Now You Know. Brought to you as always by our wonderful Patreon patrons. They help support this show and they get some pretty awesome perks.
And brought to you by abetterrouteplanner.com.
Are you going on a trip in an EV and you want to go from like point A to point B to point C to point D and you want to do charging that whole way? A Better Route Planner can do that. So check it out.
And EcoWare helps support our channel with new designs every week. We carbon offset the production, shipping, and life cycle of every product, and we plant a tree for every order.
So it's carbon negative.
Take a look at the new design here.
Ooh, racing.
Electric race cars.
That's cool.
And that has something to do with what we're going to be talking about today.
Absolutely.
So when we were in Austin, Texas at Fully Charged Live, we met up with Blake Fuller, who is a race car driver.
He's not just any race car driver. In 2016, Blake drove his Model S in the Pikes Peak hill climb, and he set a new record for production electric vehicles and came in first place with 11 minutes and 48 seconds, shattering the previous record by more than a minute.
Yeah, isn't that incredible?
Really incredible. He took a Model S, drove it up Pikes Peak, and beat the record.
Yeah. Now, Blake founded a battery company in 2002 called Braille Battery, and in fact, in 2012, every single Indy car used Blake's battery. Now, when we got to Austin, Blake was so generous with his time and his knowledge in all things EV, racing, and batteries, and you got to sit in that Pikes Peak winning car and do something special. What did you do?
We got to drive around Circuit of the Americas on a hot lap with lots of other race cars, and let me tell you, Blake was an amazing driver. He would, like, we came out of the pits, and there's just cars flying by, and they're really loud. And so we were accelerating up onto the track. And I was like, wow, this is so exciting. And he's like, are you ready to go? And I was like, we're what? And he's like, you ready to go? And then,
ready?
Yep.
3, 2, 1.
the race cars were flying by us. And then all of a sudden they just went right in front of us.
Wow.
Ready to get him?
Yeah. So then, yeah, and then we got to do something just as fun. A couple days later, we went to the Ready Rally Ranch, which is a few miles away from Coda. And Blake took the both of us on some unforgettable rally laps. Can you tell us what that was like?
So same car that just was on a race course at Coda, same tires, and we're taking it in the dirt. We're doing rally stunts in this amazing Model S. Blake knows how to drift really, really well. And he was throwing it sideways. He was doing some slalom. He really did more than I expected a Model S to do. And everyone at that rally ranch, they just drive regular old cars, manual transmission and everything. And they were all impressed. Everyone, when he took it out in the dirt, everyone basically dropped what they were doing to come look because it was so incredible.
Yeah. I mean, we were drifting around rally course
in a Model S. I've never seen anyone do what Blake did before.
I think it's the first time a Tesla has been taken in the dirt like that.
I really haven't seen anything else out there. I remember sitting in the car and just being like, this is the YouTube content that I want to see. Like, it was so much fun. And so then we actually got to interview Blake.
Yep.
And we're going to be showing you a bunch of that interview here today.
But before we get to it, we have something pretty exciting to talk to you guys about. We have teamed up with Blake, and we are preparing to tackle Pikes Peak this year in a Model 3 Performance.
So if you happen to have a Model 3 Performance and would be interested in having us transform it into a race car and possibly making a world record in it, reach out to us using the Google link down below. Now, I understand you don't know who this Blake guy is, so let's talk to Blake.
All right, I'm here with Blake Fuller, and we're at the Rally Ranch Driving School. Is that,
it's actually Rally Ready.
Rally Ready.
That is at the Rally Ranch, but yeah, and it's also the Rally Rescue, which they have a dog rescue here too.
Oh, really?
Well. Yeah, so it's really a pretty amazing piece of property.
So Marge is one of the rescues. Is that?
Yeah, actually, Marge was a rescue that is a now full-time resident, but there's a lot of other dogs that have now started to have some really good homes.
Oh, that's so nice. Yeah. We're basically in Austin, Texas, right near Coda. And what happens here at the school?
Yeah, so at Rally Ready, it's actually a friend of mine that I had met at Pikes Peak many years ago, and he wanted to start up a rally school here in Austin, Texas, to be able to take anybody from somebody who's never driven a manual transmission or slid a car other than being scared on ice, right? And teach them car control all the way up to a lot of professional drivers, including people that you'll see as major rally stars will come here to help do some cross training, get a little bit of additional fine-tuning and sharpen the sword, so to speak. So it's a really amazing venue that can cater to all types. He also does a lot of corporate items that allow for people to just go and have fun as a big group. So that's pretty fun. I've come out and worked some of those with him, and it's great to see people just really have a great time as a team. It's a good team building thing.
So tell me a bit about your background, because you're a race car driver.
Yep.
And you must have started with ice cars, I'm assuming, because EVs weren't around when you were younger.
Exactly. So growing up always loving cars, from sliding Hot Wheels around that run on your hands, going down the road. Of course, started with internal combustion cars. The first vehicles I really raced were Hondas. And the first kind of jump into the deep end opportunity I had was at Pikes Peak when I was 18, and I had raced a Honda Civic up there. So we started with a platform that actually was the most fuel efficient car, the Honda Civic VX at the time. It was a 50+ mile per gallon car.
Yeah, I had one in 1991. I loved that car. It got 36 miles to the gallon for me.
Yeah. So it's an amazing vehicle. We started with that chassis, and then we swapped in a bigger motor and took it to Pikes Peak, and actually had a really good result. And that was not only the start of my racing career, but also the start of my curiosity into what makes batteries work and why are things the way they are. It was just like, that opened up a lot of doors of thought as well as opportunity. So it was really a great start when I was 18 at Pikes Peak.
If your kids are watching right now and they want to be race car drivers, because I know Jesse did when he was a kid, so basically 18 is when you got your start, but how does that happen? Because we saw a kid at the racetrack the other day, Henry, a younger kid about the age that you're talking about, and he was just helping out and being so helpful. Is that what you did? Just kind of hang out and help?
Yeah, so it's a really good question. So there's a lot of pathways to racing. It's not an inexpensive sport. It's not something that you can go out and buy a tennis racket and start practicing, although that takes tennis lessons. There's a lot of pathways to it. Some start in karting. Others will start in doing autocross, which is sometimes local venues and parking lots that are safe and allow for you to build speed. Other times you're a bit crazy like me and jump headfirst in. One of the big advantages that has really happened since my generation is the advent of having driving simulators. So as driving simulators have continued to improve, that has allowed for a lot lower cost of technique building and skill building, as well as the amount of seat time, virtual seat time you can get can be 8 hours at a time, because you literally can be at home and building speed.
And you're not wasting tires and maintenance and all that.
And even better still is that with the communication of having everybody connected on the internet, you obviously have the ability for everybody to race each other. So it's not just you're racing against a simulator itself, you can race against other legitimate players.
So now you got your start with Hondas, and then at some point, you said you started getting interested in batteries, and at some point you, give me the chronology here, you started a battery company.
Yes.
Called Braille Battery.
Yep, that's correct.
When did that happen, and when did EV racing happen?
Yeah, so kind of taking us on that pathway, the main thing is I started with bicycles. I was always a bike geek, and into mountain biking, and then into building my own bikes. And anybody who understands cycling, you are the motor, right? So every watt counts. So you'll not only want to make the bike as light as possible, but you will spend money to make it lighter. And the same thing applies in racing, right? So that Honda Civic we talk about, on a good day at sea level, was making high 100 horsepower. Not 100 horsepower itself, but 180, 190, right? Up at altitude, because it was not forced induction, there was no extra compression getting into it. It was probably 120, 130 horsepower, right? So when you have that low of power, every ounce counts. But in the rules, you have to have a sealed battery. And at that time, the lightest sealed battery, the sealed battery, was heavier than the OEM battery. And at that point, I kind of knew about batteries the way that everybody else does. We hate them. We think about them when they fail, right? We have to buy them. And they're also very critical, meaning when they fail, like, oops, I'm not going to finish this race. So it really sparked some interest in, like, how do I, in all the things I'm trying to save weight, how do I save weight in the battery area? And that led me on a mission to start going around the US and literally traveling to visit battery companies and asking them the why question. You know, why doesn't this exist, or why hasn't this happened? Because I didn't know anything. Fortunately, the internet was finally getting to the point where we could do some decent research through Yahoo, right? Yeah, and early days of Google. So I was able to start gathering some knowledge, and it really came down to a very exceptional opportunity where I had visited a company that was doing some military batteries, and they were working on some technology that, by happenstance, they were keen to share with me, and I had pitched them this idea that, hey, you know, and if you want, I can go into the longer story, which is basically, hey, I walk in and I end up bumping into the vice president of this multi-billion-dollar company and tell him my wild and crazy idea. Like, I think we should make lightweight batteries for cars. And he's like, why would you want a lightweight battery? Like, you always want to have plenty of power in reserve, right? And I'm like, no, not in racing. Like,
can I stop you for a second?
Yeah.
Because that strikes me again as something I've heard time and time again from successful entrepreneurs, successful CEOs, is that there's a little bit of naivete. There's a little bit of like, most people in business would be like, you can't just walk into a company and ask stupid questions. You did that, but that, I mean, that's what I've heard over and over again. Like, if you just ask, sometimes you receive, and you did in this case.
And that, it's been a big part of just my career, is that I go into things with literally a blank mindset of, I'm not quite sure why this hasn't happened yet, as assuming that everybody else knows the absolute answer. You know, there's always that famous quote that the world was built by people just like you and I, right? And so we have to empower ourselves to go, why not? Let's ask those questions, right? So I asked him, why doesn't this happen? And he said, oh, well, actually, we do have a battery that we're using for military, and we've actually applied it to what was called a Boss Hog Harley, which was this Harley Davidson that had this V8 motor shoved in. And that to me was like, well, wait a second here. Did you change the size of the battery? He's like, no, that's part of the technology. We actually had to like put that same battery size to be able to start a V8. I said, okay, let's talk more about that. And that's what led to me walking into the boardroom and kind of pitching the board of directors on this crazy idea of how I think there's a market for lightweight batteries.
What difference did your new battery that you made, so it's a smaller, denser battery, what difference did that make when you started racing with it?
So I was my first own victim of my testing, and it was also, before I had met this company, I had also ordered everything that I could from racing catalogs and even from telecom companies, because some of the batteries others were using were like batteries that would be in overhead lights because they were 12 volt. And yes, they could barely start a car. So the advantage that we found with having a lighter battery was really that everything that we're trying to save weight on, suddenly we had that component that was that one more thing that was 10, 20, 30 pounds lighter. And I also knew there was a huge market of other people just like me that wanted something that not only was lighter, but would last. Because a lot of other people, like I did, were buying telecom batteries, and those weren't designed for what we were using them for, so they would last maybe 3 months. Two things would kill them. One was vibration. Like, as you're gonna get to experience today, cars bounce around a lot, right? And that battery's gotta endure that. The other is high temperature change. So you could have a car that starts off in the cold, like at a rally, and within a few minutes, that engine temperature gets really hot and heats up the engine bay, and that battery has to get cooked. So yeah, it was a big thing that we had to change, and the new battery is what solved it.
Was it 2016, you got the idea to take a P100 Model S up Pikes Peak? Can you tell me about that?
Yeah, so actually, two things just to clarify. 2012 was when the Tesla idea with Pikes Peak really started to meld together, and I'm like, I want to do this. Teslas aren't cheap. Racing isn't cheap. I had hoped in 2012 that there might be some crazy chance that this startup company Tesla, with no motorsports program, might want to sponsor somebody.
Yep. Not a bad idea.
There was a couple listening ears. They just weren't the listening ears that said, yeah, we're ready to jump into this. And I get it. It's a startup. You don't want to risk everything when it could be a good reward or a bad thing. So yeah, 2012 was the inspiration. And in 2016 is when I finally kind of threw my hat in the ring. I had enough savings, because my racing is a personal thing and something I do for my sponsors, and something where I love doing the first of the kind of items or trying to break some new barriers. And I had been watching the market, and the P90DL that came out was something I felt like this can really have a go at it. This can really rip. And so, yeah, we acquired one, and there's a lot of challenges in getting that record that we ended up getting.
Can you tell me, because I know nothing about what it takes to get a car, into Pikes Peak and then up Pikes Peak. I mean, that is not cheap. How what kind of money are we talking here? How many people do you need? What kind of team?
Yeah, so it is relative to the amount of experience in the industry. To learn something costs money in racing, right? To get that data, it costs a lot of money. And so if you were to go and buy a Porsche GT3 and spend 150 grand or so, there would be a wealth of community knowledge, of immediacy that you can go to people that can steer you in the right direction to have a really quick setup. And also there's existing safety equipment for those cars. And there's people who want to work on them. So what we found is that 400 volt systems are not something that almost anybody wants to touch and or weld a cage into.
Oh, right, because if you're welding into a car with a battery, like, do you take the battery out first? Like,
exactly. Like how much of an operation is this going to be? So that really was, besides the acquisition of the car, which those are not inexpensive cars, right? We're talking a 6-figure car.
Yep.
From there, it was how do we meet the safety requirements, right? And then also how do we educate the organizers, the tech inspectors, that we have done our due diligence, that we're not going to send this big ball of energy up this national forest and catch the entire place on fire, right? There's got to be a high level of trust. So to cut to the chase, it's about $250,000 to $300,000 to be able to run a program at Pikes Peak with the new Learn. And so we had to do a lot of testing. Obviously, Tesla is not necessarily an open book about, they are as far as the mechanical designs. But with regards to the data coming from the systems, that was something that it was difficult because we were flying a little bit blind, and it was more of reactionary testing as opposed to anticipatory, where we get all the data and we can just make decisions. We had to go out and kind of learn through pushing the limits and finding out what worked and what didn't. And that took a fair amount of crew and time, and I had a lot of volunteers on my crew that helped keep costs down. I can only imagine what our costs would have been if we didn't have such a great team of people that I've worked with over the years that really supported my passion.
And there's just like a whole lot of minute logistical things, like, for instance, charging the car.
Yes.
Like, you were telling me that you had to do this kind of weird charging.
Yeah, so we had a tough decision to make. We obviously wanted to have an environmental program, so do we have a diesel generator up there on the hill constantly running, charging it, or do we charge the car with electricity and somehow get it to the mountain? So, and I want to just kind of frame this for a second. So Manitou Springs / Colorado Springs is a little bit over a mile high, so it's around 5,500 feet. The start line's at 9,000, the finish is at 14,000. And so fortunately, within the year of when Pikes Peak that we went out there, they had built a supercharger, which was great. So there was a supercharger right there in Colorado Springs, and what we would do is we would pretty much get up to about 95% state of charge. Then we would bring it up to the hotel that was closer, and we would charge it till 2 o'clock in the morning, which is about when we had to get a flatbed to pull it up. That way we had the least impact because we just had a flatbed that was literally now just rolling over the road and bringing it up.
Well, good for you thinking of all those things.
Yeah.
Minimizing,
Overthinking it.
minimizing your impact. So walk me through morning of the
Yeah.
race. I mean, you've done some testing on Pikes Peak, but now it's morning of the race. Can you just talk me through like what you're feeling and what the race was like?
Yeah, so it's yesterday I was actually sharing the story at COTA with a few different people because a lot of the visitors to Fully Charged Live were like, is this the car that they either know it for breaking the record or the car that was on ice and then broke the record? And so, a couple people got a chuckle out of what happened with the ice. I mean, ultimately, my crew started the night before, early in the evening, scouring every place that sells ice, and had about 1,500 pounds of ice that we had set the car. Yeah.
Why ice?
Why ice? Yeah. So what we found through our testing was that we did have ways to improve the cooling system of the vehicle. However, one of the biggest things that made a difference was the information that the vehicle would see of starting temperature to really set the tables of how it makes certain decisions. And so based upon our strategy of climbing 5,000 feet over 12 and a half miles, it was determined that if we were to cool the battery pack down, we would have two things. One is that we would start with a particular table that wouldn't necessarily work against us, but we'd also have the entire thermal mass of the car working for us to keep the battery pack cool. And then we wouldn't have to use as much energy with the HVAC system and everything else to be able to try to counteract the heat rise that was happening. Now here's the funny thing. The car is aluminum for those on the UK side, or aluminum. Aluminum's a great conductor of thermal, right? So here's a car on ice. It's getting to Sunrise Point. I'm one of the early drivers going, and it was a race against time to, we have tire warmers on it. It's like the tire warmers are there kind of like fighting against the ice all around them. The car's slammed down on ice, and the crew's all ready with jacks ready to go. And the rule at Pikes Peak is if you're not in line where you're supposed to go and somebody else kind of starts the stage, you will literally you're done. Like, you don't get to run. Oh, wow. So the organizers are like, come on. And I'm in the car, like, going, okay, all right, I'm getting my belts. Hold on. And the guys are like, wait. Because, like, we're trying to get the tires up to temp and keep the car as cool as possible and not waste any energy on anything.
And you're not at your right temps yet.
Yeah. And meanwhile, as the sun's coming up, the air temperature changes, all the windows fog. So we've got like everything fogs up because the car's frozen, right? Oh, no. So now it's like, oh gosh, wipe them off. Should we turn the AC on? Like all this decision tree, because like, kick the HVAC on. That's going to put the computer into a different set. So we really were trying to think of everything to optimize this because again, we wanted to demonstrate the capability of the car in mostly its OEM form. Mm-hmm. So the battery and the drivetrain, everything was OEM. But being a racer, we still want to do the best time, right? We still want to like really put out a commitment. So we're going to look for anything that we can do as a team to improve that result. And these were all like those, like what we learned, like we're going to give this a shot.
What did you do about the fog, for instance?
So it was a quick wipe down. And I think somebody actually had some of the Rain-X like anti-fog and quickly like did the screen and then we were good. But it was that with, it's also the excitement. I mean, you've got tens of thousands of people lined up, the adrenaline's going. And the caveat is that part of my job as the driver at this particular instance was not to accelerate quickly, not to leave the line quickly.
Really?
Yeah. So part of the drive up was a lot of self-control to be able to, only until like the very end, which was just for fun, the car was really not floored much.
So you're trying to hold yourself back a little bit. Explain to me, what's that? Why are you holding back? I would have just, I'm not a race car driver, but I would have just floored it off the line. Like,
that's the natural tendency is like, okay, there's the go pedal. let's go. This is a unique thing about Pikes Peak. It is like that Eminem song. You get like that one shot, right? You never race the full length of the mountain at all until race day, period.
Oh, you just train on pieces?
Yeah, so when we went out a few weeks before, we got to see the mountain over 2 days, so it's split in half. When we go for the actual race week, you get 3 days of practice, it's split in thirds. It's kind of a unique test because we were able to get data in those sets, but what was interesting, and I'm so glad that we did the test 2 weeks earlier, is because we were finding at the end of like a half point, if we had pushed it, that the car would start kind of derating a little bit. It would start pulling back throttle. So anybody who's a Model S owner might be aware, or should I say those who maybe especially live in Europe, they've seen videos of it derating, right? We were experiencing that because again, this is a 4,000 pound plus car going up a hill, right? So we had done a lot of calculations of what we saw the car react to, and then we started trying to assume what would be an ideal run. And so with that, it was slowly working the car up the hill without ever fully building a lot of thermal rise. And it's those quick bursts, like one of the things that gets hot in a Tesla is the stator. And so when you're trying to energize that and you're driving energy to it very quickly, that's gonna build quick heat. So it's the rolling in, turning the regen low. These are all things that make a difference.
Interesting. So how was your run? How did you feel about it?
I felt like it could not have gone, there is no perfect run in racing. But I feel like that self-control paid huge dividends because really we could not have gone much quicker. And that was affirmed literally by somebody that I met up with later that was from Tesla corporate, that he had a very interesting question. He said, I noticed in your run that, and they're also part of the team that does autopilot. So they have a lot of data to be able to say, here's an optimal acceleration over time. And everything he said was within a few percent all the way to the end. He's like, in the end, it's like way off the chart what happened. And I was like, oh, dude, it's like I saw the checkered flag and I had to at least floor it once. I'm like, it was.
Oh, so the Tesla people, they've got your data.
Yeah, they do.
You do the run.
Yeah.
How does this affect your career?
I think from the electric vehicle standpoint, it's something where it affected me mentally more as my career choice. It wasn't necessarily like phones were ringing off the hook per se. We did get an incredible amount of media. I mean, the Tesla owners are incredibly supportive and love any news. You know, Tesla Time News, right? It's like, bam, I want to know what's going on. And when we really had the first ever accredited trophy to come home with for a Tesla vehicle, that's like, yeah, dude, that's our home team. We're going to win this thing, right? Mm-hmm. And so for me, in my mind, it was like, it really instilled, okay, I even if there's a compromise in the result, even if it's not the best career choice, this is still what I want to do. Mm-hmm. This is something that helps make people aware of what the possibilities are. And it's only going to get better. And it only gets better quicker by pushing the limits, by breaking things.
Speaking of the limits, you are on the list, I think, for this year's Pikes Peak in a different car.
Yep.
But tell me about this.
Yeah, so it is 2020, right? It's been 4 years since the record. It still stands. And so being competitive, I figure if anybody's going to break it, I better be the person to do that. So we are hoping to put a program together for this year. As I mentioned, you know, my racing is a personal thing. And I've had some wonderful sponsors like Toyo and Klipsch Audio and K1 Speed, which is an electric go-kart track. They've been incredibly supportive.
They're awesome. We did a video on that. Yeah. They're great.
And those are the forward-thinking companies. Those are the companies that say, you know what, we know this is the future. We're going to embrace this. We're going to support it, not just with product, but actually we're going to put our money where our mouth is, right? And that was huge because that helped offset a little bit of our cost. And so, you know, for this year, we hope to have the same sponsors on board, and we hope to have the opportunity to return with a Model 3. But again, and I hate saying stuff because I'm the person, if I say something, I got to do it then. It's like, I'm hoping that with the support of others, we can make that happen. Because
how can we help make this happen? Because if we could get you, I mean, because you're an experienced driver now, like you understand, you feel Tesla, you understand how they work. If we could get you on Pikes Peak in a Model 3, I feel like that would be another record-breaking occasion.
Yeah, weather dependent, it's going to really put it down. It's going to be exciting. And I've had fun watching a lot of the Model 3 owners on track. Mm-hmm. And I go, yeah, this is going to be really good. So I think there's opportunities for companies. It could be even individuals, you know.
How about Tesla, though? I mean, they could step up now, right? Like,
well, they are sponsoring with fuel, right? They did provide the electricity, so I guess I should give a big thanks for free supercharging, right? So maybe if the Model 3 that I acquire, please give me free supercharging, maybe I should use my own code or your code or something. I don't know. That really does help. But I think that the support of companies who want to get involved in this would be really, really good. There have been a few initial discussions with companies that have been traditional, you know, internal combustion tuning companies that are starting to develop products, and they realize that this is something they need to be an early adopter on. And the return on investment with a program like this is ridiculous. I mean, motorsports is expensive, and there is always, not always, there's a good return on investment with certain types of motorsports, but this is almost, there's no guarantees. But I mean, you think about it, this type of program, I would want to know more about it.
Yeah.
It's super exciting.
No,
and people want to see the differences. They want to see what's improved in 4 years, right? P90DL, that was the rocking car at the time, right? So we know the Plaid's coming out. It's not ready yet. Maybe if somebody has gotten a Roadster already, I'll take that up. But, you know, let's go with the Model 3. There's tons of Model 3 owners. Like, I'd love to support that community, show them what the car is capable of, and, you know, bring home a much faster time.
Well, I just want to put this out there now for you, because I want you to, like, at least pencil us in on your calendar. I mean, Jesse and I are going to hopefully be getting some Roadsters from Tesla. Thank you to everyone who used our referral code. And I can't think of anyone I would like better to drive it a Pikes Peak than you. So when that day happens,
done.
I want to do that. So let's get him on the track with the Model 3 first. You know, I don't want you rusty.
Exactly, right? Well, and that's the thing too. Each time we go, we learn something. Right. It's the tricks and techniques that develop that consistency of a championship, and that's the thing that to me is most important. And it also, I've always been one that has never been cagey about the secrets of racing. It's actually, in fact, the reason that we're here at Rally Ready is that Dave wanted to race an Integra Type R after I did. And he called me up as an 18-year-old racer and said, "Hey, dude, I heard you race Type R." And I was like, "Yeah, what do you want to know?" And I told him everything. And he has had a wonderful career. I mean, it's like, let's help other people with this. It's not that, and that is one of the great things about the hill climb, is that it is the second oldest race in America, and it's like a family up there.
Well, speaking of family, I mean, you took Jesse out on the track at COTA the other day for a hot lap, and I mean, that was just so nice of you. You didn't have to do that. You let us help work on your car and get that seat ready and stuff, and then
I don't know if I let you.
That's what I mean. But like most race car drivers aren't going to let just newbies touch their car. You did. That was so sweet. And then Jesse just had the day of his life. I mean, he came back and was just telling me that car handles so amazing. And then you didn't just do it with Jesse. You did it with everybody. There's just YouTubers lined up to do it. So thank you for doing that. And
so like yesterday, you mentioned taking Jesse around. Everybody that rode in it, we had Rich Rebuilds, we had Nikki, we had tons of, like, even Jehu. He was like, "Man, I did not know that like the Teslas handle like this." I mean, people do think of them as good handling cars, but we got to remember, when the Tesla is coming from the factory, the tires on there are trying to compromise with all-season grip, low rolling resistance, quietness. And so on our car, we have the Toyo R888s, which are actually a very soft compound, road legal tire. I mean, you can literally go out, buy a set of the KMC wheels like we have, and get the tires, and my car is stock suspension. So that level of handling with the low center of gravity, it's already there, but having, some running shoes on really helps it run, right? And that's the thing that everybody was like, "Wow, this is amazing." So yeah, I mean, if you're looking to like really see what's possible, and I put a lot of Porsche owners and some Ferrari owners in my car, and they're like, "I didn't actually like the way these things handled." And then I drove your car, and it's like, wow.
Now, I just want to mention that we've been running our cameras on these GoPucks, and you have GoPuck written. You have the GoPuck logo on your car right now, because you are the CEO of this company. Again, another battery company, because you get batteries. Tell me about how this came about.
This was another one of those kind of ideas where it came out of a need. And so I had a company that was doing batteries for IndyCar, for Formula One, traveling the world, and my cell phone kept dying. My GoPros are dying, right? We've all experienced that, like that epic shot and it's dead. Yeah, and so with that, it was, how do we take what we've learned, again, from racing, and then blend it, because our CTO is one of the patent holders for the Tesla supercharging. It was like, let's get, somebody from GoPro together, myself, that made the IndyCar batteries, and somebody from Tesla, and let's make a power source that isn't just like a backup battery that you kind of think of occasionally, but something that you would use every day, and something that has higher energy. It actually has higher energy density than even the new Model 3s.
Wow.
So it's about 15% more energy dense. And part of that is because we've miniaturized our circuit boards and our power conversion. So it's a product that I wanted to build for everybody.
Not only that, you can put it wherever you need to put it.
Yeah, so we developed and patented a complete mounting system that allows for it to be hands-free, because none of us like carrying stuff.
Right. Because I mean, normally Jesse and I are putting these big bricks into our pockets, our pants are falling down and stuff, and now we've got this, which I've been using constantly for the past 2 days since you gave me one, and just strapping it all over my body, and like it's perfect.
Yeah, and part of it too is like for content creators. Like, this is,
like I'm talking
it works. It works on a tripod. It works on everything. Yeah.
You YouTubers, like, check this out, because it's everything else is made for just, I think, consumers to, like you said, maybe just charge your phone or something, or keep by your bedside table. This is meant for like on the go, your GoPros. I saw them all over your car the other day when you had your GoPros set up. Like they're perfect, because GoPro batteries like this probably just died on me right now. And you need to plug them in. So.
Yeah, and this works with like the newest GoPros too, which is something that is very forward thinking. So the new GoPros take between 12 to 18 watt of input. This does that easily. So this is, a big step forward technology.
All right, we're about to go out, and you're going to do something, I think, kind of crazy with your car. Can you just tell me what's going to be happening, what we're seeing right now?
Yeah, so yesterday, Jesse got to ride on the track. Perfectly manicured COTA, right? Like, there aren't many cleaner facilities in the world. We're going to take it to the dirt. We're going to see what happens.
Yesterday we were on the track. Today we're in the dirt. It's the same car. Are you changing the tires?
No.
So same tires, same car.
Have you lost your mind?
Yesterday we were racing against Corvettes and Porsches, and I don't even know.
And some McLarens.
Right. And catching up to them on the track, that was insane. Yeah. Let me just ask you, take one of those cars, bring it here. What's going to happen?
A big repair bill.
Okay.
First of all, my car does have air suspension, which is super rad.
Okay.
So we are able to adjust the ride height.
Yep.
Very few of the cars do have air suspension that are on the track, but a lot of those that are street worthy, the air suspension is more to get over speed bumps, right? It's not necessarily tuned for that.
Yep.
Yeah, I think a lot of those cars wouldn't be pretty.
Right.
Benefit of all-wheel drive with the Tesla, benefit of everything that they do.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
All right, let's go do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you so
Yeah.
much for taking
You
the
guys are
time to
welcome.
talk to us.
That was
Yeah.
awesome.
Yes.
Wow, I hope you enjoyed our interview. That was so fun talking to Blake. He has so many stories. He has so much knowledge. He's like a Jedi. He's at one with the car. Did you feel that?
Yeah, absolutely.
As you were riding, I was watching some of the footage. As you're taking a turn, like right after you've taken the turn, you're just like recovering from it. And he starts talking about what he did right or wrong in the turn, how the battery is feeling,
Right.
whether the car is, getting too hot.
When we were hunting the Senna down, the brakes went out right through here. It was fun.
I didn't know that a Model S could perform that well. I mean, yeah, it had racing tires on it, but like Blake really knows his stuff because I think that I'm a good driver or whatever, and I wouldn't pull half the stuff that he did.
Yeah, I mean, I'm so excited about this team that we're putting together to climb Pikes Peak this year. So Blake is the guy to do it. He has got the skill, he's got the experience, and he's got the ambition to win.
And he's already done it.
Yeah, and if you want to be on our team and you've got a car, let us know in the Google form below, and let's make this happen because I am so excited.
So now you know.